Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. The date today is Sunday, September the 10th, 2017. And did you guys see It this past weekend? I saw It last night with my best friend of 25 years, which was really cool. We actually celebrated 25 years, if you will, just a couple of days ago. We first met in grade 7 in 1992, so that was kind of cool. 25 years, man. Pretty awesome. And we both work in the industry as well, so that's pretty cool. But that being said, in my last video where I talked about what I think they're going to do with the new Halloween film coming out next year, I had mentioned briefly that I was hopefully going to see it this weekend. And if I had time, I would upload my thoughts. Well, here I am, and I'm doing that. Now, I don't want to turn this into a huge rant of like half an hour or something, but you know me. You know me. So I'm going to try to do my best to keep this concise. This isn't sort of a formal kind of review. It's just me talking about the movie. So did I like the movie? Did I like this new film adaptation, the first official, finally, major motion picture adaptation of Stephen King's It? Yes, I did. I thought it was a very good movie. I would give it, I've only seen it once, I just saw it last night, but I would give it a solid B+. That's what I would give it, a solid B+. So let's talk about why. Okay, well, there is no doubt that the strength of the movie is what everybody says it is. It is the chemistry. Oh, and if you haven't seen it yet, spoiler alert, I should have put this at the beginning of the video, but if you haven't seen it yet, I might spoil some things for you, although I don't know if I will, because again, this isn't a formal review. I'm just sort of talking about the movie. So be forewarned if you haven't seen it yet. You might want to wait till you see it to watch this video. So anyway, yeah, so there's no doubt what everybody says is true. The strength of the movie is the relationship and the chemistry between all the kids. Absolutely. And yes, it is. It feels very like Stand By Me meets Stranger Things meets The Goonies meets, you know what I mean? It's very well cast. The chemistry is solid between them. And that is sort of the heart and the driving force of the film. It's also sort of the heart and the driving force of the book too. So that works well. Okay, great. But if I can say this, I enjoyed Pennywise. I liked Pennywise. I liked what the actor did with Pennywise. I liked how he was utilized for the most part. But there wasn't anything, if I could use this word, and hopefully you know what I mean when I say this, proprietary about what happens with Pennywise and what we see with Pennywise and how he's utilized. That basically what I'm saying is that if the chemistry between all the kids was even just 20% less, or it just kind of wasn't there, or we just kind of weren't feeling it, or it was just kind of, whatever, this would have turned into a mundane, pretty regular horror movie pretty fucking quick. Because there wasn't anything that Pennywise was doing or any sort of something new we haven't seen before, or taking something that they've done it like this to keep me interested. So thank fucking God for the chemistry between these kids. Now, again, I'm not saying that Pennywise wasn't utilized well. He was good, but I almost felt they had him on a leash and he was a little restrained. And I wanted to see, like, the one thing that we got from Tim Curry in the miniseries is that Tim Curry felt he was like a loose cannon. Like he was, 1 minute he's going, and he's going, come on, Georgie, don't you want it? Don't you want it? Like almost like he wants to have sex with the kid. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's this creepy sort of pedophile-ish. There's that sort of vibe to Tim Curry's kind of Pennywise, right? But then he's all like, you know what I'm saying? And we did get that. We did get that with, I forget the actor's name now. It escapes my mind. The Swedish guy. I know his name, but I can't say it off the top of my tongue. We did get that with him. But I almost felt like it was a little sort of restrained. It's a fine line. You don't want him to go too far, but you can underutilize this moment. These moments with Pennywise. Yes, there's a lot of CG. I'm not against CG. We live in the day and age in CG, and having computer-generated imagery has helped us to create major motion pictures and stories and tell those stories in ways that were not possible 30 or 40 years ago. So I understand it. But there was a few moments where it was unnecessary. You could have achieved the same results having not used so much CGI in this particular moment, and it might have been creepier. One of the things that I didn't like was, I'll give you an example. They did too much of this with Pennywise. Okay. Okay, do that once. That's fine. Totally cool. But they did that like 3 or 4 times. Like, I would understand if they did that to the character of Richie, right? Because Richie is scared of clowns. Now, we don't know that until about 3/4 of the way through the movie, because he never piped up to what his fears were. But then we know that, well, I mean, if you've seen the, miniseries and read the book, you know that. But we don't know that for all intents and purposes until he says it. So he's the one that's actually afraid of clowns. So it makes sense in his scene with Pennywise that Pennywise is like, beep, beep, Richie. You know what I'm saying, right? But he did that with Bill, and I think he might have done that with, there's one other character I think he might have done that with too. It might have been one of the bullies in the sewers or something. And I'm just like I get it. That would be creepy no matter what, even if you're not afraid of clowns, just that idea of somebody doing that. Okay, it's scary. But they did it too much. Another moment I'll talk about. I talked about this with my best friend as well. I actually thought some of the best moments were actually when they went into that house, that creepy old house, for the very first time. And it was very much, Goonies meets A Nightmare on Elm Street kind of thing, right? I thought that whole sequence was excellent. And that was probably the most interesting and most fun that I had throughout the entire movie, was that whole sequence. Because it was like, it was like it was like they themselves were in this haunted house at an amusement park. And that's sort of how I felt about the whole movie as a whole. I didn't find it particularly scary. I mean, it was, but there was nothing that happened that left with me when I left that went with me when I left the theater. Do you know what I'm saying? I forgot about the movie when I went home, and when I went to bed last night, I wasn't thinking about it. I think my buddy and I came back to my place and we played some GTA 5, right? And we weren't even thinking about it anymore. We talked about it on the drive home, but we didn't think about it. So it's kind of like that thing where it was scary. Yes, it's a horror movie. Well, yes, because it's it. But there wasn't anything that, it felt like I myself was in a fun house, haunted house at an amusement park where the scares are scary, but they're the fun scary, right? They're where you're in a haunted house and somebody goes, and you go, and you're like, oh, shit, dude, I'm fucking scared. It's that kind of scary. Whereas if you watch something like Insidious or The Conjuring, the first one, or something like, The Others, or some real good horror movie that's built around tension and suspense, and it's more the psychological aspect of it, you can almost feel the tension as you're watching this film build, and you're like, fuck, there's nothing really eerie happening on the screen, but I feel fucking creeped out just watching this because of the way the pacing is and the way they're setting everything up, and the way it's like, oh fuck, nothing's happening yet. Why isn't anything happening yet? You know what I'm saying? Now, again, I understand that they have to be true to the source material. I understand that. But there are ways and things and certain shots and moments that they could have done with Pennywise that they didn't have to do it that way. You still could have got the same point across without it being as sensational as it is. Now, is he a shape-shifting entity that manifests himself as a clown? Yes. So I'm not saying take it all away. I'm just saying make fine-tune adjustments. And I'll give you an example. And this is purely from a directing and editing standpoint. When they're in the house and Pennywise reveals himself and he grows tall, right? He grows really, really, really big, right? That was creepy. That was fucking eerie. He's like this 8-foot clown, but they cut away too quick. If I was directing the scene, I would have maybe had a quick POV shot of Eddie through Eddie's eyes. And he's leaning against the door and he's looking up and he sees Pennywise, his head hit the ceiling, and Pennywise is just there, and he looks down like this and he gives that kind of smile, right? And it's through his eyes. And then we cut to maybe an over the shoulder shot at Pennywise's height. So we kind of see his shoulder and maybe his ear and maybe some of his orange weird hair looking down, so it's this power shot looking down at Eddie and the kids right in the corner, right? Just little things like that to utilize his size a bit more. It almost, he got big, and then before we know it, kind of shit's happening, and I was kind of like, let's draw this out a bit more. There's nothing more eerie. That's why the Slender Man, right, is so eerie and weird, is because he's tall and lanky. Anything tall and lanky and scary is scary. So, I would have utilized that scene just a bit more. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Little details and nuances that I wanted to see with Pennywise that they didn't sort of fully realize, I think. That's just one example of sort of what I'm talking about. Just just sort of playing that out a bit more, not drawing it too much, because as a filmmaker and as a director, you have to know when to cut it, right? You can't milk something too much, because then it just becomes over. Okay, I get it, lame, you know what I mean? But you certainly can also underutilize something as well. Now, is less more? Absolutely. Yes, less is more in a lot of cases, but there are cases where sometimes it just wasn't enough. Sometimes you have to stretch it out just a little bit more, maybe get this shot from this angle, play it up just a little bit, and the scene feels a little more fulfilled. This moment feels a little more fuck. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the way it worked for all intents and purposes. It did work. It's not like it was awful, but as a filmmaker, as someone who loves the horror genre, as somebody who knows a lot about horror, it's those moments where I'm like, yeah. Oh, fuck. Oh, I would have. Oh, okay. But damn. Just things kind of like that. Yeah, and there was CG that didn't need to be CG. I mean, you didn't need it. I mean, the blood coming out of the sink and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, there's things that were utilized well. I thought the strongest of the characters was actually Beverly and her relationship with her father. I thought that was probably the most developed out of all the characters. The least developed was Mike and Stan, which I thought was a little unfortunate. They sort of got left sort of in the background. They just were kind of there. Mike sort of, I thought Mike was going to make his appearance after they sort of came across Ben, who, when he was beaten up by the bullies, and they sort of all kind of settle outside of that meat shop or whatever it was. I thought Mike was going to come out through the doors or something like that, or sort of meet up there, because I think that's sort of where we last saw him or something like that. But Mike didn't become part of the Losers Club until almost like the last act of the film. Like there was only like 20 minutes left in the movie when Mike finally became part of the Losers Club. So that was a little disappointing to me. I would have maybe had him enter a bit earlier. I would have given Stanley maybe... I understand that the other characters are more interesting and they're sort of the focus, but I would have given Stanley maybe just a... something just a little more. Like, all we know is really that he's Jewish and that his test is coming up. There's not really much we know about that. So the other characters were definitely more well developed. And it's fine. Like, I mean, it worked, but it definitely was the heart of the movie. It certainly was. Without the kids being as good as they were, and without the chemistry being as good as it was, I don't know if the stuff with Pennywise in and of itself on its own is good enough to carry the weight of the kids not being good enough, if you know what I mean. But the kids being good enough was enough to carry what lackluster maybe certain moments there were with Pennywise. So definitely the kids were the heart of the movie. My other favorite scene with Pennywise, which I thought was really well done, and yeah, they probably did use some CGI here. There's a few ways where you could have done this in terms of visual effects, but they probably did. But I loved the slides scene, right? When he manifests himself on the screen in the dress as the clown, and then I believe it was Eddie takes the screen down and the map down, and then all of a sudden the lights go out and Pennywise comes out of the wall really, really huge. That was great. That was great because it was utilized so well, because it was dark and the lights went out. It was dark, and then it was light, then it was dark, then it was light, and you were only seeing sort of where Pennywise was when it would become light, right? And the kids had to rush over to the garage door to open it up. It was just a great scene. Really well done, really well executed. Probably the best Pennywise scene in the movie. One of them at least, hands down, in the top 3 or 4. Really, really well done. And I was sort of hoping overall that we were going to get a more darker psychological film. It was a horror movie for all intents and purposes, because what else are you going to call it? But it's more of a funhouse movie. It wasn't anything that and as I just said, I felt like I was on a ride at an amusement park, a really good ride at an amusement park that I had a lot of fun on, but I wasn't scared. I mean, it wasn't like when I left The Conjuring, the very first one, when I left the theater, there was a lot there I was thinking about and going, wow, I would have loved to have seen a James Wan It. Okay, keep everything the same. Keep the chemistry with the kids. Keep the source material. Keep everything the same. But see what James Wan would have brought to an It adaptation. I would have loved to have seen it because I think he's probably one of the best horror directors right now going. Insidious was fantastic, the first one. The first Conjuring was fantastic. Their sequels, which were also directed by Wan, were okay. I mean, they definitely were acceptable, but they were not as good as the first. And of course, the very first Saw movie, which was James Wan as well, way back in 2004, is the best of the series and just an awesome film. So I would have loved to have seen James Wan direct It because I think he would have gone darker, and I think it would have been fascinating to see his take on it. And it may have been a better movie. I think the Pennywise stuff, all the Pennywise stuff would have been really, really good with James Wan at the helm, and something you actually take with you when you leave the theater and think about at night and think, fuck, that was fuck. This felt just more like a funhouse ride. Scary, awesome, great. Maybe I'll go on the ride again because it was fun, but it wasn't scary. Do you know what I mean? Like psychologically scary, where you're like, fuck. At least to me. This is my own opinion, my own thoughts on the movie, and that's why I gave it a solid B+. It's a fun ride. If I was directing the movie, there are things that I would have done a bit different. Like, here's an example. I'll give you another example before I let you go, because I know I've talked a lot here again. The scene when Stanley, I think it is, is it Stanley? Yeah, he's the Jewish one, right? When he goes into his father's sort of office there, where he sees this painting on the wall of this weird, warped-looking woman, which was a creepy image. It was really, really creepy. When he sees it, looks at it, walks out of frame, in my mind, I honestly thought to myself, the painting's going to fall off the wall. The painting's going to fall off the wall. I know it is, and it did. If I was directing that scene, this is how I would have done it, because doing it my way or the way that it is does not change anything about the plot, the narrative, or the film, but it does change the perception to the viewer and how the viewer feels. I would have played it out and had more of a slow burn. So instead of having the painting fall off the wall, which signifies to the viewer in the audience, oh, that something bad is about to happen, right? As soon as you know that that painting has fallen off the wall, and as soon as you hear that, you as a viewer are ready. I don't want you to be ready. I don't want to show you that it's coming, okay? So what I would have done is had him look at the painting, go through the same thing, leave, go put the book away or whatever he was doing, and then kind of walk back to leave, and he just kind of looks, and the painting's on the wall still, but the woman's gone. And he looks and he's looking, and now he's sort of second guessing to himself, was there a, and then he walks over to the painting, there's no music. He looks at it, he holds it, maybe he looks at it a bit, looks around. Play it out, right? Have that slow burn. Build that tension for the viewer. Look, you're probably thinking, yeah, but Dave, when Stanley goes over to the painting and picks it up, the woman's gone. And with your suggestion on how you would do the scene, the end result is the woman's still gone. So I don't get it. What's the difference if the painting falls off the wall or not if the end result is the woman still being gone? The difference is this. You as a viewer are signaled by the painting falling off the wall that something bad is about to happen. So you are just by a hair, put a little ahead of the character in knowing what's going on. Whereas if we do it the way I suggested, you experience it at the same time as the character. Now you might be thinking, yeah, but the character heard the painting fall off the wall as well, and I heard the painting fall off the wall, so aren't we experiencing it at the same time? Not really, because the character is not necessarily thinking something bad is about to happen, right? The chances are he hasn't necessarily had some sort of weird, crazy, supernatural experience with this painting before, something that he's about to have. He just thinks it might be a creepy painting, right? And he seems a little down and depressed, probably because of the relationship he has, with his dad, not necessarily because he's scared of being in that office necessarily. So what I'm suggesting is that when you don't have the painting fall off the wall and you have just the woman disappear, it's very subtle, but you're immediately in the exact same position as Stanley. You both are experiencing this weird thing together right beside alongside each other, not you just a hair ahead of him. And that's why I think it's important, and I think it's creepier that way and eerier that way, because it seems more grounded and mature and realistic, not some cliche painting photo falling off the wall thing. I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I promised myself I wouldn't. I just sort of wanted to give you my thoughts on what I thought on the movie, sort of a compartmentalized version. There's so many scenes I could talk about, and I could go on and on and on. But again, I wanted to sort of just kind of give, yeah, here's what I thought, here's what I think they should have done. I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I give it a solid B+. Comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on Stephen King's It, on this adaptation. What did you want to see? Was there something that you would have done differently? Is there something that you saw and you were like, I wish they would have done this? Or maybe you're completely happy. Maybe you're one of those people that's like, no, 10 out of 10, man. It was amazing. The best film I've ever seen. The most incredible motion picture experience I've ever had in my life in a fucking theater. Oh my God, it was amazing. Maybe you're one of those people. Or maybe you're like, no, it's fucking shit. It was the fucking shittiest thing I've ever fucking seen in my life. Both extremes are pretty much completely wrong. Anyway, comment below, let me know your thoughts. My name's Dave McRae, and I will talk to you guys soon. Cheers.